This is the X18.1 and this is the X19.1, and I know what you're thinking. They look the same, and that's because they are. Sort of. What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand new Adidas X 19.1 in the 302 Redirect Pack launch colorway. Now, on paper, and even just by looking at the boots, they're almost exactly the same as the model that they replace. But upon closer inspection, while the overall experience is pretty similar to that of the X18.1, they've made some pretty significant improvements. Unlike the changes made between the old Predator 18 and the new Predator 19, where they basically just added a rubber element to the heel and called it a day, the changes made between X18.1 and X19.1 are way more significant than you might expect. So I want to go over all of the changes in today's video, talk about the overall performance of what has been my personal favorite Adidas boot over the last year or so, and also go over how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around and watch the entire video. And just a quick shout out goes out to Soccer Loco for sending these out for review. If you're interested in a pair for yourself, they're offering SR4U fans a special price. First link down below. If you're interested in a pair, be sure to go ahead and check that out. If you guys do end up enjoying this video and perhaps would like to see reviews of the rest of the new models in the new X19 lineup, don't forget to support this one with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on future content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. Included with the boots is this box. And that's it. As for the boots themselves, as I already mentioned, on paper, the tech specs are pretty much identical when compared to the X18.1 that these replace. But upon closer inspection, you'll notice that the Speed Mesh upper, which is still called Speed Mesh, is completely different, both externally as well as internally. It's a totally new construction. It's still a mesh-based synthetic, and it's not just regular mesh, it's speed mesh, which is faster than the average mesh. Either way, you'll notice that this does have a completely new texturing with kind of this ridged pattern to it, kind of like the ridge pattern we used to see on Mercurials, but not taken to the same extreme. Either way, there definitely is more texturing to the touch versus what we had on the Speed Mesh upper of the X18.1. Also, the finish, which might vary from colorway to colorway, is glossy on this boot, which we never had on the X18.1, which does give it a slightly grippier finish on the ball. In order to achieve this ridge design, they had to actually increase the overall thickness of the base mesh material for the upper, which also allowed them to add more structure to the upper while also eliminating layers. So you'll notice internally all of the exposed gray is actually exposed mesh. So the base layer of this synthetic lines the entire inside of the boot, which is different from the X18.1, which features a synthetic suede lining the entire underside of the upper, both for the sake of comfort as well as reinforcement. So in some ways, this is actually somewhat similar to what we originally saw introduced from Nike, sort of in the form of the Hypervenom Phantom 1 and its very famous Nike Skin upper. It's not quite Nike Skin-esque in terms of feel, but that's the comparison that I'd like to make. Another design change that you'll see is that because of this kind of slightly thicker TPU top layer as well as a thicker mesh base, they have less reinforcement around the toe box and forefoot area, and you'll also notice that they eliminated that kind of weird seam right here on the medial side, opting for an upper construction that is more or less one piece all the way through. The final product really offering what I would say is still a very similar feel to that of the X18.1 in that it's thin, it does have that barefoot sensation, but there is a slightly softer, slightly more padded, kind of airy sensation to the boot that I wouldn't necessarily say is better or worse. It's just a slight variation of what we had before, but overall, from a design perspective, I think this is a much better job. Because this is the X19.1, it does include a lacing system. So I'll say right off the bat, if you're looking for the best responsiveness and lockdown and overall fit from a pair of Adidas speed boots, the .1 model with the lacing system is probably what you want over the laceless variation, although my review on the laceless model is coming very soon. One design change that you will see that they've made though is in the base mesh material spanning the lacing system, which is no longer this super thin, kind of cheap looking mesh, and it's now a little bit thicker, a little bit more rugged, and this more intricate pattern that just feels more premium in my opinion. When you're actually wearing the boots, It's not really a noticeable difference, but it is a nice change nonetheless. As far as the heel area is concerned, this is the one area that does remain more or less untouched. They have changed up the construction around the edges a little bit to kind of give it a slightly different look, but for the most part, it feels pretty much identical. And then as far as the heel liner is concerned, that remains completely unchanged. In my opinion, one of the best heel liners on a pair of football boots, period, right now, where it's very thin in terms of its construction, but they had a ton of extra padding in the form of these two little heel bumps, a nice synthetic suede liner on top of those. Then you also have these little grip dots on those bumps as well that seem to do a really good job of locking your heel in place and gripping your socks in general. The insole is fully removable and is pretty much unchanged from the previous model, although you will notice that the size tag is now stitched to the insole, and that is because the mesh base layer inside of the boot, basically acting as the liner, is the base material for the upper, so they don't have the opportunity to fuse the size tag to the inside of the boot like they normally would. So they stitch it to the side of the insole. Either way, the insole is just the standard synthetic suede material with some perforations throughout, and it's made from a single layer of this white foam, pretty much the standard comfort insole from Adidas. Moving on to the sole plate and stud pattern, there have been no changes made whatsoever, which is fine because this is probably the best sole plate and stud pattern on offer from the Adidas brand right now. It is their speed frame sole plate, which does include the external heel counter, basically the most modern interpretation of the sprint frame design originally introduced on the F50 Adizero series, in that it's lightweight, it's got great flexibility to it, it feels solid at the same time. And I know a lot of people are on the bandwagon of Adidas bringing back the F50 line. This is the F50, guys. They could just change the name from X to F50 and the boot itself would be no different whatsoever. So if you're a fan of F50s, this is probably what you want to consider. Either way, the sole plate is great, and they just changed the name for the sake of having a different name rather than calling it a sprint frame for the 10th year in a row. Either way, as far as the stud pattern is concerned, this is their FGAG layout that does carry over from the previous model. Conical studs in the heel, and then kind of these more bladed triangular studs in the forefoot that are fairly narrow in profile, meaning that they're just quite small, so they dig into the ground quite nicely and provide really, really good bite. Not quite on par in terms of overall aggressiveness to some of the stuff on offer from Nike, mainly the Mercurial line, which is the main competitor for this boot. But as a whole, especially for use on firm natural grass and artificial grass surfaces, this is probably the best stud pattern on offer from Adidas right now. When it comes to weight, despite the design changes that they've made, the weight doesn't seem to have changed much at all. In a size 9.5 US, the X19.1, as you can see, weighs in at 7.4 ounces, which is pretty much identical to what you would have found with the X18.1. As far as the look is concerned, there really isn't any huge differences. If you didn't know any better, you'd probably think that this was still an X18.1. I have to say that I kind of prefer the mesh look that you got on the upper of the X18.1 versus this ridge design, but I do really like on this particular colorway, and I'm assuming this will be exclusive to the 302 redirect pack, is the circuit board kind of gloss pattern that you have within the reddish orange Adidas stripes right there. But again, the base design remains pretty much the same. I can't say this is my favorite colorway either. I kind of just feel like this glossy, kind of grayish silver color just ends up looking a little bit plasticky. I really wish this would have been a full-on chrome. I think that would have looked a lot better. I like the little detailing here of having this kind of semi-translucent mesh around the edges of, I guess, what is sort of a collar. And I do like the finish on the sole plate. That apparently is not a wearable finish. It looks like it is, but apparently this is just kind of matte plastic with a little bit of a shine to it. I really do like the way that the sole plate looks. As a whole, not my favorite colorway, but still, I think it's a great looking pair of boots. So I've swapped out the stock gray laces that have this kind of chrome detail in them, but the gray laces themselves have a little bit of a brownish tinge to them and don't really perfectly match the grays you find on the upper. Either way, I've swapped them out for some junior length red reflective SR4U replacement laces, which do accent nicely with all the red detailing you have on the upper in the stripes, as well as the sole plate, and it changes up the look of your boots in comparison to everyone else with the same colorway. So if you're looking to change the style of your boots in a very inexpensive way, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. You'll find a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. So if you're interested in a pair, be sure to go ahead and check that out. On feet, the X19.1 feels almost exactly the same as the X18.1 that it replaces, except once you tie the laces tight, it is pretty evident that there is slightly more structure to this new speed mesh upper, which is great because that was one of the main complaints that I had with the X18.1. Not to say that it lacked responsiveness, but this just feels that much more responsive and secure on your feet, which is a very good thing. Aside from that, everything's pretty much the same. The shape doesn't seem to be tweaked in any way at all. It's on the same speed frame base. The heel liner is still one of the best in the business, and it also has this extra kind of bunching up of material here towards the top of the foot, which I've never been a big fan of, and that's just due to the design choice of going with this extension piece at the front that is completely unnecessary, but something that you have to live with. And in all honesty, while it doesn't look great, it's not something that you ever notice when playing in the boots whatsoever. As far as overall fit is concerned, they have some decent width to them, and with the laces tied tight, the lockdown and overall fit of the boot is fairly snug. So I would say if you have really wide feet, maybe not a great option, but I think for most people, you're not gonna have too many issues. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and length is pretty much perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair for yourself, I'd recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, I have to say that I've been pleasantly surprised with the X19.1. The X18.1 was great as it is. As I've said on this channel, it is my personal favorite boot from the Adidas brand, and it didn't really need a lot of improving. But if there were two elements that I thought could be improved, I'd like to see the little tongue piece shortened, which they have not done, unfortunately. And I felt like the X18.1 could maybe be a little bit more responsive, and they've achieved that with the slight redesign in the form of the X19.1. They added the structure to the upper without taking away from the softness, the lightweight feel, and really changing up the overall base concept that the X18.1 introduced. I think that this is a great example of tweaking a design ever so slightly to where you're not ruining the original recipe, but you are improving upon it, even if it's just a slight improvement. I'm not gonna say that if you have the X18.1, you should immediately go out and buy the X19.1, but as a whole, it is actually a better boot than what it replaces, which I was not expecting. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, you can click the first link down below where you'll find a special coupon code for SR4U fans to pick these up at a discounted price below their normal $225 retail. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.